What is going on, everybody? BobbyFi with my guys Eric Sheets-Haber and Kenny Hyder. We are going to be talking through this this golf slate. It's an interesting one. I don't know. I feel like I have a lot of a mixed feelings, so I'm kind of looking forward to this. Kenny, welcome back. It's always great to have you here. Sheets, obviously, it's great to have you as always. But let's talk a little bit. Sheets, why don't you start it off just a little bit, maybe about the course and sort of the kind of players we're looking at, and Kenny, you can sort of go from that, and then we'll go by tier.
Well, first, I'd like to discuss the results from this past week from a DFS perspective, for me at least. For those of you that saw, I did my own video this week. I put my sheets out, whatever, and it was a good example of do as I say, not as I do, sort of. I had Daniel Berger projected as the top overall golfer, and I announced I was going to play zero of him because I didn't believe that this past projections mattered, considering that he probably has a bad back. So I played zero of him. Good idea, Sheets. Not really. Then I had this amazing idea of playing 50% Matt Wolff, including also an outright bet on Matt Wolff. Now, the outright bet was not whether he was over or under 90, which in round one, which that would have been a more interesting sweat than what ended up actually happening. So and again, we got to kind of embrace these results. You know, if you're going to screenshot your good ones, you got to embrace them. I played 20 lineups, none of them cashed in any tournament. The closest I came was I had 1, 5, or 6 that missed the money by like 7 points or something like that. So it was just one of those weeks where, and somebody said, "Hey, thanks for the info sheets. I did this. I did really well based on your sheets." But hey, good. At least somebody did. So I'm looking forward to this week. I spent a lot of time on this. I've been updating different models and giving some more weight to others, and I included another one just for testing this week. And I'm really looking forward to having both you guys on to help talk me through some of these, especially these 7K guys, because I have a bunch that I need to kind of sift through. I might end up just shuffling them all anyway. But I'd love to get your take on those and see where we're at with respect to these other ranges as well. So I'm glad Kenny's back on here. Any other voice except for mine would be refreshing considering last week's results. So let's I guess we should just get on with it.
Yeah, let's get into it. Kenny, what are your thoughts on sort of the general? I mean, I had the same thing with a bad week, so I'm glad we're all together because we didn't have this last week. So what are your thoughts on this sort of the course in general, and maybe some guys who play well on these types of courses? I know you're pretty good with this stuff.
Yeah, so it's a very difficult course, and we have a pretty loaded field. The thing about this tournament, this is an iconic tournament. It's it's leading up to the players next week. A lot of hype. People are still in Florida. Golfers have been in town. People are like, there's people that didn't play last week. I'm sure had plenty of practice. So this week, especially just because it is, such a classic and iconic tournament. Really this week, I'm kind of liking, obviously because it's such a difficult course, you have to have, the best golfers. It's going to be really hard to, see guys in the 6K range popping up at the top of the leaderboard on the weekend, like we, saw last week. So this week I'm more focused on, guys who maybe are a little bit in the shadows, who just have been great golfers before, slanting towards some of that, historical performance, guys that we know are just good and have been good, over a long career, because, the guys that have played this a lot, this is a get up tournament, it's not just another one on tour that they're just like, another week, another day. This is an exciting one. There's, a lot of hype. This is a highly televised event. So I'm looking for some of the classics this week.
I like it. All right, well, let's get into the first range. Sheets, why don't you start us off? I guess we'll go above 10K. And, I just before you get going, I want, me and Kenny were both talking about how we like Rory this year and all this stuff. And I like Rory too. And I just can't bring myself to play him at what I am looking at as higher ownership than Rahm at $300 price difference. I am going to be all over Rahm. That's all I know in the top range. What are your thoughts on the top range, Sheets?
Yeah, I'm going to have zero of Rory. The two guys I'll have exposure to over 10K would be Rahm and Scheffler. I have Rahm as the top overall play. And I do think he's going to be higher than 19, 20%. I think he just is. But I think that's okay. If you play him and the way I'm going to play, I'm probably going to have a bunch of 7Ks. And if you have those, you could just pick the lower owned ones and eat some of the, and eat ROM chalk if you want, which is probably something I'm going to do. The other guy that I play is maybe some Scotty Scheffler. And it's not like he's going to be particularly low owned either, but I have him only about 15% right now. So I think Rom is clearly my overall top play on the board. And then Scheffler would be the only other guy over 10K I'll play. I think Hovland, at least for me, is not projecting all that great, except in the ownership category, which is a bad combination. So I'm probably going to be off of him. And I will be off of Hideki as well.
Kenny, how about you in the 10K plus?
I also will be heaviest on Rom. He is the best golfer. This is a difficult course. He's been frustrated lately. He's had some time to practice this last week. No reason to think he doesn't come out and immediately start posting scores on day one. I also agree about Rory. I like Rory. I'm a fan of his anyway. But the ownership is just too easy for me to say no thanks, especially when Rom is, like you're saying, just $300 more. I also still am on Scheffler this week. I said it last time I was on. He had, he's been having a great run. I expect it to continue. And he's, at the lowest projected ownership in this range, even though it's not by much. I'm going to be real heavy on him as well.
Yeah, I sort of in lockstep with you guys. The only thing I would say is that, if there might be a way, there's some cheap guys that we'll get into later that I think you can play. So you could argue if you want to play two of these guys. These are all really good golfers. I like the Scheffler idea. I don't mind the idea of playing Hovland, though. I'm a little bit higher on Hovland, I think, than both of you guys are. I thought he looked really good last week. And after a sort of a slow start and ended up finishing fourth. I think that he's, or I guess I should say the week before at Genesis. I think he's going to be, I think he's a really solid option, but I probably would lean a little bit somewhere between he and Scheffler, I think are my next favorite guys. And I'm surprised at how much ownership Hideki is projecting for right now. I have some interest in him, but I don't think I'm going to end up probably pulling that trigger. But again, I can't play all these guys. So those are the guys who I'm into it. It sucks because I do like Rory here. Maybe I can try and find a way to play a Rom Rory lineup if I get enough value. How about the next range of the 9K sheets? What do you got?
Yeah, so the best play, I think the best play relative to everything else, and it's going to be really chalky, is Matt Fitzpatrick at 9,200. I imagine he's going to be 20% plus owned. Just all the models like him. He just fits, just everything fits for him. So, if you do play him, you're getting some chalk there. So you have to think about that. A couple other guys I want to bring up. Again, this is another do as I say, not as I do or whatever. According to my numbers, like Sungjae Im rakes to be like a really, really good play. Like I have him like my 5th overall value. I just don't see it. That's my heavy analytical response. You know what I mean? I feel like I can find 8K guys that I'd rather have like straight up against Sungjae Im if you want to know the truth. So I guess he must have been playing really, really well in the last couple of months to have him show up in all these models nowadays. But I don't know. I just seem to have this vision of playing him at like 7K in the last year or so. So I don't know. I'm not going to, I think I'm going to force myself off of that, even though my numbers will say otherwise. Zalatoris, he's going to be too chalky for me. I'm not going to get to him. Terrell Hatton, I've just lost too much money playing him. I'm not playing him at all. Leishman, not for me. I'm curious to get your guys' opinion on Adam Scott, because I know you were guys that both of you were the first guys to tell me, hey, this could be a good Adam Scott year. So curious to get your take on him. But for now, it's Fitzpatrick chalk for me. And that's pretty much it from this range.
Yeah, I got you. How about you, Kenny, on this one, and then I'll talk. I do like, by the way, for what it's worth, I really do like Scott this week. But Kenny, jump on in.
It's really interesting. I'm kind of opposite here. So I do like Adam Scott. I do think he's going to have a great season. You know, I probably going to Scott into more of my single entry lineups. And on my multi entries, I'm probably going to try to fade him and Fitzpatrick just because of the ownership projections.
Yep.
I also, you know, I really like, oddly, I like Terrell Hatton this week, which is funny that you were saying that, Sheets, because, you know, the last 3 tournaments he played, he went T4, T6, and T9. He has just not been playing on the PGA Tour. So, you know, he's not rating out well because he hasn't been playing on this tour recently. I think he's a sneaky play. I love this, see that he's, you know, low projected ownership. I'm going to pounce on that all day long.
Mm-hmm.
I also do like Leishman as well. And he actually was one of my in my early research, was one of the guys that popped up. And then I'm glad to see that he also has started to kind of level out in, you know, a lower ownership range. So in the 9K range, I'm going to be heaviest on Hatton and Leishman for sure.
I like the Hatton idea too, and I was gonna, you took the words out of my mouth with what I was gonna say about him. I'm sorry, did I say Leishman? I do like Leishman and Hatton. I think I actually really like this range. I know Zalatoris is popular, so I'll have to have him with some of my lower owned lineups, lower owned other places, because I do like Zalatoris here. But I like, okay, Leishman. Look, he's played the last 3 times he's played this tournament. He finished 1st, 2nd, and 7th. He's made 6 top, what is he? 6 out of the last, been top 20, 6 out of the last 8 tournaments he's played. Hasn't missed a cut since September. And he, in that time, has, you know, again, all these top 20s. Now he's priced like a guy where maybe you'd want a little better than a top 20, but I'll take a 10th place. And Fitzpatrick, he's the 2nd best putter in the world on this surface. It's hard for me not to have an interest in him in a spot like this. I just wish he wasn't going to be so popular. But I think Leishman is actually, from what I'm looking at, I'm sort of shocked that he's not going to be. I'd be surprised if higher buy-ins, Leishman's not more in the 20+% range, because he feels like the safest play in this range to me, which feels really weird to say, but his form has been great. It's the perfect kind of course for him, and he's proven it by going 1, 2, and 7 the last 3 times. And I'll be mixing it Adam Scott. So I actually really like this range. I told Kenny last week, I was like, oh, nobody will play Sungjae after how poorly he played. So I'll wait till next time and of course play him. And of course, people are too sharp and he's getting ownership. So I'll stay away from that. But I pretty much like everybody between 9 and 9,400, with Fitz and Leishman being my favorite, just a tiny bit. Well, actually, no, I guess Scott's right there. And then Hatton would be the next one, but they're all right there for me. I really like this range. Maybe you play ROM with 1 or 2 of these guys, and then you find the super value if you want to, because we'll get into the 8K range. There's one guy I absolutely love, and everybody else I could take or leave. So Sheets, why don't you start it off?
Okay, so it's interesting that you brought that up, because I spent a lot of time thinking about this 8K range. I ran like one time I ran numbers. One guy popped up as being a great play at high ownership. Second time I ran, he ended up being like an okay play at high ownership. Then there are other like really, really good pivots I wanted to bring up. So I'll do it this way. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 guys in the 8K range. I'll tell you the guys I'm not playing. I'm not playing Max Homa at 8,700. And I want to talk to you about these other guys. So first of all, the guy who projects really, really well, and he's going to project to be 20% owned is Mitchell. Okay. And I struggle over this, right? So I just kind of put that off to the side. All right. And then I started doing more homework, and you're getting a lot of these guys that are getting some love, you know, like Kokrak and Paul Casey, and they all project like pretty well. And I just try to see if there's anybody else in here that projects close enough that maybe I could use a pivot. I just want to try to sell you on 2 guys in the lower part and 1 guy in the upper part. I'm interested in Sergio Garcia at 8,100 and also at Tringali at 8K. And part of it is because they're just right around that Mitchell exactly price tag. So maybe they fall. And then Casey is right above them at 8,300. So maybe they fall. So I'm going to play, you know, I might end up playing 1 or both of them in my big lineup, either Garcia or Tringali. I never play Garcia. Like, that's like exactly the type of guy I don't play. And hopefully like other people might not play him also. And the other guy that I'm gonna play, who's again is just might get overlooked a little bit, is Sam Burns. So at 8,800, he's right below Herschel, and everybody likes playing Herschel in general. So for me, in this range, you can make a case really for anybody. But my top guys, given like leverage, giving everything else, would probably be Burns, Garcia, and Tringale.
Burns, Garcia, Tringale. Okay, Kenny, how about you?
Well, I love that you said Garcia, because I like that too. And
that's great.
He's another guy that I think is going to have another great season. At the end of last year, I was telling Bobby, I think Sergio's going to come back. We're going to hear a lot. He's going to get a lot more press because he's going to start doing well. So I really like that play, and I love that he's projected lowest in the range here. I do like Billy Herschel. He's another guy that I like, every tournament at this point in his career. I will have plenty of exposure to him as well. And really in this range, the only other guy I'm, really afraid of not having enough exposure to is going to be Jason Kokrak. I think he's kind of a sneaky play coming on that's maybe not going to get as much attention just because there's so many other people, especially in this range, that have been doing well and have been notable recently. And he's kind of like one of those under the radar guys. And I think that his ownership, where it's projected now, I think it's going to actually be less than that. So I'm going to be, thinking about how I can, not miss out on the Kokrak train, because I do expect him to do well. The rest of the range here, I'm kind of okay with just ignoring. Burns, Homa, and Gooch, I love all three of them, but I don't have to love any one of them this week, I don't think. So I'm going to be focused more on Garcia, Herschel, and Kokrak here.
Okay, it's interesting because we're in. I get the Garcia idea, and I like the low ownership. I think that's cool, and I think the same thing you could say for Tringale. They're going to be the lowest owned in this group. I have like Homa, Burns, Herschel. Homa, Burns, and Gooch all very similar, and I'm just probably gonna end up not doing it. I do like Herschel a little bit, but I'm gonna eat the chalk with Paul Casey. I mean, the guy is like just much better than I feel like he gets credit for. I feel like he's chronically underpriced. He finished top 10 here last year, number one in the field and gained in strokes gained on approach over the last 36 round. Very important for this tournament. So I'm into Paul Casey, and it's the Keith Mitchell thing. We're really just fading because of ownership at this point. I mean, you want to talk about being in good form, like the guy's last three tournaments, 9, 10, 12. And then he had the one where he missed at Farmers. Before that, at Sony Open, he was 7th and 12th. Then right before that, that was going back to last year. But so this year, he's been in the top 12 in 4 out of the 5 tournaments he's played, and the course suits him. I like him. I just think I'm going to probably mostly weight it towards Casey, and I'm worried that's what you said about Kokrak is my exact feeling. I'm a little worried about not having enough of him. But again, I just feel like everybody in this range outside of Casey I have as being fairly similar. And then there's the Keith Mitchell crazy high ownership. I don't want to play 20+% guys in this range, but that's the guy who I'm going with the most. And I will mix in some of the other guys we talked about, but I don't think that they're going to be staples for me by any means. I think this next range is going to be very interesting. I've got some lower owned plays here. So Kenny, why don't you start this one off and then we'll go to sheets.
So to start this one off, I'm glad that Jason Day was announced out, because I was going to like him a lot. So that makes it a little bit easier for me. This week I like Woodland. He had a great week last week. I think he's a solid golfer. He's projected on the lower side of ownership. And he just doesn't have the history at this course like a lot of other guys do. So he might get overlooked. But he's also, a pretty decent fit for the course, I think, except for the length. He's just not real long off the tee, which could be a problem. Also, I like, actually, because of our conversation last night, Bobby, I've been re-examining Tommy Fleetwood, who I think is an interesting play, especially at, low ownership. And, he is a great golfer. And actually in this range, he gains, the most strokes to the field of anyone, actually of anyone even in the 8K range. So, I think Fleetwood is going to be something I'm going to be focused on, trying to figure out exactly where to fit him in. But, other than that, in this, top range, I also am going to be focused on Cameron Young, who's just been on fire lately. And, even if he is a little bit on the higher side of ownership, that's fine. I'll go deeper. And then also a little bit of Chris Kirk also, who, played great last week and, has been doing well recently, has a great history on this, including, he's got in the past 3 times he's played it, 3 top 15s, including a, top 10. So I'll be focused on him as well.
Yeah, I liked what you said. I also am into Kirk, especially, but Sheets, why don't you jump on in?
Yeah, I hate to do this. I hate to say this, but as I mentioned earlier, the 7K range is just, I don't want to say loaded, but I'm just saying that there's a lot of good plays here that are really close to one another. And fortunately or unfortunately, the field is sort of sharp with these. In other words, I'm not seeing any of them like over 15%. I'm not seeing any of them under 5, that they're all going to get played somewhat, between that 7 to 10% range. And I don't want to get too overweight on any of them. And if you're playing one lineup, you got to take a shot, right? So I mean, I'll give you one. I might like right now, the top rated guy is right now Corey Connors by like a smidge. I mean, honestly. But if you want like the lowest owned guy of like the top guys for me, I'll give you Seamus Power and Justin Rose, but the fact is that if we're going to be playing multi-entry stuff, you're going to have to kind of spread it out a little bit. I'll go over guys maybe you didn't talk about. So Connors, I just mentioned, Justin Rose, Lanto Griffin. I'll just give you the top guys. I have Keegan Bradley, Seamus Power, I mentioned, Luke List. I really can make a case for anybody except for, I don't know. I didn't get any Patrick Reed this week, so now he's going to win. I didn't get any Lee Westwood, so he's probably going to win. It really is a range. What even Bobby's MVP, the Saditha Digala, who's to say he can't do something? So it's a range that if you're going to play multi-entries. And look, I'll give you an example. Like I'm sharing my screen, right? So like if you play Rom to start off with, now you're at 7,700 per person, right? So whether you play, let's just say then you put in, say Fitzpatrick, now you're at 7,300. So whether you have to go into the upper 7K ranges or the lower 7K range, you're just going to have to play these guys, especially if you want to play Rom, right? So I would spread it out around those guys. I guess when we talk about our favorites at the end of the day, at the end of the podcast contest, we can go over our favorites, I suppose. But all the guys you guys mentioned make sense to me.
Yeah, it is a loaded. I thought that was loaded too. That's partly why I decided to get rid of a lot of the 8K range, which may, of course, could bite me. But I really like a lot of the stuff here. So like I like this. I think Thigala and Young are both fine. They're not my favorite plays in the range, but I do want to keep being overweight on these guys in general. Because I'm a sadistic person, I will probably play 10% Matt Wolf.
Yeah.
I know I'm going at 7,400. I'm just going to take like you get some shots or whatever, but you can also just take the much more safe guy here, and maybe the safest guy in the lower 7K range is Kevin Na, and like I never play Kevin Na, but 7,400 is just getting to the point where it's too cheap. And it's, you don't need to, he doesn't need to be crazy off the tee in this course as much. It could hurt him a little bit in certain holes, but my favorite, I am obsessed with Fleetwood. I'm just always going to be overweight on this guy. I think that he's had a bad run of it in a lot of the American events, but is a really elite golfer and much better than his pricing is indicating. So he would be my guy. I think Woodland looks like he's back to being Woodland. So Woodland and Justin Rose, I have as kind of like, do I want to play them? They're going to be 5 or 6% owned. I think I want to have 10%, probably maybe a little bit more, only because, but I would say more, but I like a lot of these guys. I like Corey Connors. I like Chris Kirk. And it's really hard for me to rank all of them outside of that. I love Fleetwood and getting over the field on him. I love getting over the field on Kevin Na, which feels really weird. And I'm going to buy into this Tom Hoagie thing. I also think it's very strange that no one is going to play Sepp Straka at 7,300. I don't care that he just won a tournament. He's 7,300.
They'll play him. They're going to play everybody. And if someone doesn't get played, it'll be by accident. Like, you won't know. I'm telling you, I just don't think you're going to know which of these guys is 3%. Like, somebody's going to be 3%, but I just don't think you'll have any idea who it's going to be.
You're probably right, but I'm looking at Straka as the lowest owned player in the slate on this range, along with Matt Wolff, which just sort of caught me out a little bit by surprise. The other guy who I think if you're playing a cash game one who feels like safe with upside is Lanto Griffin. But again, it's a really strong range and it's hard to decipher exactly who's so much better. So I am going to be very heavy on Fleetwood. I'm going to be heavy on Kirk. I'm going to be heavy on Na, and I'm going to be heavy on Griffin, and I'll mix in the other guys.
So let me start with the sub 7 with the 6K range, because I want to say that I did two things right last week. Okay, in actual execution. One thing I did was I played about 60% Gary Woodland, like you guys, which we talked about. He ended up T5. The other thing that I did is I played about 50% of, and I gave him out as my sub whatever guy. I played Bad Attitude Kevin Streelman really heavy last week because he was only like freaking 7K. You know what I mean? It was ridiculous. Like I mentioned that in my video that I'm playing a guy at 7K that I just announced that I was going to have it at 9,200 to miss the cut 2 weeks ago. I mean, like, it's a difference between 9,200 and 7K, and he had a nice day. He ended up T16, which was, well, good enough for 5,000 for me in one of my GPPs, I guess. So in the sub 7K range, I do like him again as a cheapo, but I want to give up two other guys. One is just always, I mean, he's always dangerous, dangerous in a good way, bad way. And that's Aaron Wise at 6,900.
Yep.
Like him a lot. And then also a guy who, again, as much as you always like to play Kevin, not always, like Tommy Fleetwood or other guys you just like, I just always keep getting to Charles Howell III. And so I will do it again. It's now he's like almost like the bare minimum. He's like 6,400. So I'm going to take that. So for me, it's Wise, Howell, and Streelman in the under 7Ks.
I like it. Kenny, I'll let you finish this one out because I'm going to go real quick. I love Carlos Ortiz this week. 6,900. I really, really, really like him. He's my favorite play under 7K. I will be very heavy on him. And I absolutely cannot figure out. I understand that you're looking at ranks and all these things. By the way, all the numbers actually do lead to a pretty great thing for this guy. And I am going to go right back to Svensson. I was on this guy earlier this year. I was on him last week. One of the few good things I did right. It's funny because we even talk about guys like one of my issues with Streelman is we don't talk enough. We talk about where guys finish. We need to talk more about points because guys like Ortiz will go out there, guys who can both make eagles, who are streaky. Yeah. I mean, Kevin Streelman had he was tied for 10th, and I think he had like the 50th best score or something at any golfer. Right. And Svensson made the most birdies of anybody last week. Of any player in the field. He had some high variance holes and he had some, three double bogeys and stuff, which hurt him from actually having a chance to really win the tournament. And if he won, he was going to, outscore everybody by 1,000,000. I really like Svensson. I really like Ortiz. There are plenty of other guys who are in the mix. And I understand that the Streelman idea. I get the Aaron Wise thing. I still want to bet on the guy's talent. And this is the kind of tournament where maybe he could show up. I think that another guy who actually does show up as a potential, this is a really long shot one, is Min-Woo Lee.
Who?
Some of the numbers and some of the guys who I respect really like him. And I've got to figure out if his ownership is right. And maybe it's based on a weird projection. So Sheets, I need you to confirm.
Do I even have him projected?
Who?
What'd you say his name was?
Min-Woo Lee.
Spell M-I-N?
M-I-N.
Yeah, I got him. I have him projected. I got him. I'm game. Min-Woo Lee. I do have him in my list. I have 1% ownership.
Sheets gets all excited every time there's like a weird.
Hey, sure.
Yeah.
So look, I like the. I mean, look, and you know me, I'm always gonna. It's not the right course. It's not the right situation. I'm gonna always have a little bit of my Patton Kazire Again, another one of the 10% sprinklers that I've got to take some shots with. I will have a similar type of attitude towards Aaron Rye. I actually like it down here. I mean, I think there's some reasonable golfers. I see Higo getting some ownership. I'm probably going to avoid that, but I don't mind it. The guy who I want to ask you about, Sheets, on your projections and maybe the ownership, because I'm really confused by this, but Scott Piercy is projected absolutely through the roof in what I'm looking at. And I can't tell if that's just an outlier. He's 6,100, and I'm looking at him projected to be 20% owned. Is that possible, Sheets?
How do you spell his name?
Piercy.
Pier?
Yep.
I don't even have him projected, so I don't know what to tell you.
He just got added today, so maybe there's something.
So I'll look at him later then. Okay.
Yeah, and then the I'm not going to play this guy, but I thought I would mention at the very bare minimum, or right near the very bare minimum for Jaeger, and then at the very minimum for Norlander. I just see those guys as having a reasonable chance to make the cut here. I know who Kenny's going to throw in there as a really, really get weird play. So I'm going to have to get some of him, but I'll let Kenny talk about him.
You guys want like a really like ridiculous, this is the ultimate, like, remember in the NFL, they used to have a thing where the guy who busts his chalk the week before, you play him in GPPs the week after. How about you play, Nikolai Højgaard at 6,800. He got all kinds of love last week and I don't know what he ended up doing.
He was terrible, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's projecting to be not really good, but I figured I'd throw it out there.
Yeah, no, I mean, there are real guys down here this weekend. I'm just going to go back to one other guy. I mean, look, I'm talking about this because these guys are all like in play. I think Lee Hodges is on the way up, and I think Sam Ryder has been really, really good over the more difficult.
Sam the discount man.
Yeah, it's just so there's a lot of guys down here that I kind of like mixing in. I'm going to have my strong core of KC, Rom, and Fleetwood, honestly, which is weird, and probably some Kirk and maybe something Herschel. But I'm going to be sprinkling out other than those main guys. Oh, and Ortiz, of course. But I really think there's a lot of guys down here, more than I can remember for a 6K range in a long time, that I really have interest in. Kenny, what are your takes down here?
So I think it's an interesting range too. Starting off, I can totally understand why people are going to be on Aaron Wise. I will not be. I don't like it at all. I do like a little bit of Brendan Todd up there at 6,900. He's a great golfer. He's been playing well recently. His ownership's projected low. So he's a little bit maybe more expensive than I'd want him to be, even though he's only 6,900, but probably have a little bit of him as well. I think another interesting play is actually Ricky Fowler. I guess he's been down in this range for a while now, but he fits in perfectly with what I was saying at the top of the show, as having been a great golfer at times, having played this course, has a personal, connection to it. He's done well here before, and there's no reason why he couldn't go out and have a great week. Also, so getting into this range a little more, I get, liking to dip down a little bit further. So I also like Sam Ryder this week. The guy's been on fire. No reason to not expect him to make the cut, much less, have a shot at top 20 or some, there's no reason he shouldn't, just because he hasn't played, this course, great in the past doesn't mean, he's not a better golfer now than he was when he was playing it then. I also will be back on Pat Perez this week. I've been on him the last few weeks. A couple weeks ago at the Waste Management, he burned me a little bit, but I think he's getting his form back. Another guy, older guy, played here plenty of times, has history, and is in good form right now, especially for, only coming in at 6,600. Mm-hmm. Then also, so dipping down a little bit further here, there is, also this week, I think, especially just because of the announcement about the Ryder Cup yesterday, I'll be trying to get on a little bit of the Zach Johnson train. He was just named captain for the Ryder Cup. I think he's going to be in great spirits. He's had, made the cut here plenty of times before. He hasn't been playing great lately, but I think, it's a little extra boost in his step. He's going to be motivated to make the cut, so he gets TV time because he'll get plenty of TV time just being named the Ryder Cup captain. So he has incentive to kind of like do well this week, and not fiddle with his game and just try to play where he is, where he is. Then my two last guys both clock in at 6,200. The first one, who I've talked about before and have played plenty of times before, is Rory Sabatini, who is actually not in the best contention for having a huge case for him, but I think he's a solid golfer. He he gains strokes in pretty much every category, and I think he has a decent shot at being a salary saver that can help you with the 6 of 6. And then the other one, which is my totally off the board weird one, but I follow him on Twitter, and I really like him, and he's actually had some pretty decent success overseas lately, and that's Patrick Harrington.
Really?
Now he doesn't really rank out well anywhere. He's motivated.
Doesn't he have a father that used to play?
No, his cousin is Dan Harrington.
Oh, okay.
His cousin's Dan.
Okay.
So I think no one's going to have him. I think he's been playing over. He played in Dubai. He got a top 9 at the Desert Classic. He got a top 20 at the HSBC Championship before that. And then he made a couple of cuts befis missing the cut at the Honda Classic last week. And I don't mind him missing the cut at the Honda Classic, the odd tournament. Things were all over the place. And he's also still in Florida. He hasn't traveled overseas. He's been probably a little bit more well rested, and I like him also as a salary saver that I think just no one's going to play.
There you go. I mean, that's I'm gonna have to throw him into something because Kenny said it, and when he pulls out the weird ones, and also separately, me and Kenny were talking last night about poker, and somehow Dan Harrington came up separately. And I was like, Dan Harrington is the cousin of Patrick Harrington. Sheets, I'm sure Dan Harrington, right?
Oh, of course I know Dan Harrington. I thought you were being sarcastic about him being his cousin. I didn't know that.
No, he is. And I remember because he was at the final table of the World Series talking about how, this is great, but my cousin just won his first major event or whatever. So obviously it's a little paled in comparison. But anyway, I think it's really good. I did want to throw out one more name. Danny Willett, 6,400 is like that. He plays well on these courses. He looked pretty good last week. Wasn't awesome, but was solid enough. I'll take a 48th for a 6,400 guy, but there's a lot of guys down here, so I don't want to overflood everybody. So we can get to the game now, but I did want to throw in Danny Willett because I forgot to mention him.
Right. So there's two ways. There's people are looking for like process, right? So there's a couple of shortcuts that you could do if you just wanted to play some golf and kind of have some fun. Like one of them is you could just basically just download my projections and just run them in an optimizer and do whatever. And that's definitely one thing you could do. Another thing, if you don't even feel like doing an optimizer, whatever, is you could just ignore like the last like 45 minutes of our thing and just come to this part where we basically give our best plays at this at each range and then just kind of just see what fits in your lineups. And I'm sure you'll end up doing better than we do if you do that. So let's get right to it. So the first thing is just basically who's going to win.
Yep. I'll take John Rahm if that's okay with you guys. You guys can take him too.
Yeah, I'm going to take him also. So
Kenny.
All right. Well, I'll go with Scotty Scheffler.
Okay. All right. All right. In the 10K and below, or 9,900 and below, Kenny, why don't you start this one off? Who you taking?
You need to get the top. You need to get the top 5, right?
Top 5. Okay, we'll go with Tyrrell Hatton.
Tyrrell Hatton. I like this, Kenny. You're getting off the board with it. All right, Sheets, who you got?
I will go with Matt Fitzpatrick.
You're going to go with Fitzy. I'm going to take Leishman.
Yeah. Oh, that's strong. Okay.
Hold on. Let me rethink that one for a second.
Don't let me sway you.
No, you're right. I just was going to save my next guy for next. I'm going to take Adam Scott.
I like that.
All right. So under 9K and going to top 10, Kenny.
I'm going to take Billy Horschel.
Billy Horschel. Okay. So you're going to force me to play even more of them. All right. Sheets.
I'm going to go with Sam Burns.
Okay. That's going to be one that I wasn't going to go, that I'll get a little bit of. I am going to go all the way down here, and I'll have to find another guy for my next one, but I will take Tommy Fleetwood.
Ooh, he will do it for you one of these days.
He's going to make it. He has to, because I play him every time. So it's, at some point he's going to have to do it.
It's going to be the day where my Charles Howell III comes in alongside of Tommy Fleetwood, and
we just rake in the money.
And then one of Kenny's 60-year-old Europeans comes in and just sweeps it all up.
All right. So who you guys got here? Under 8K, Kenny, or Sheets. Kenny, I'll start with you, and then we'll go to Sheets.
Under 8K to top 20, is that the deal?
Yep.
Yes.
I'm gonna go with Cameron Young.
All right.
Since this guy's done so well for me, missing 3 of the last 4 cuts, I'm gonna go right back to Corey Connors.
Yeah, how sick would it be if I said Matt Wolf here, but I'm not going to. I'm going to say Chris Kirk. I do like Kevin Na a lot, and there's a lot of guys I can make arguments for, but I like Chris Kirk quite a bit. Now
this is the under 7K. Remember, this is not like the top performing 7K. This is the 7K guy to make the cut. That's the rule.
Okay. 7K guy to make the cut. So Sheets, you start this one off then.
All right. So for example, like I'm not going to play Aaron Wise to make the cut. I'd actually rather play Charles Howell III to make the cut.
Okay.
I actually like that. I forgot to mention, I do like Charles Howell III also in this range, but okay. I'll go to make the cut. I'm gonna go with Sam Ryder.
I like all of these. I'm going to have to say my 2 guys because I love them both so very much, and that's Carlos Ortiz and Adam Svensson.
So now you need a guy over 9K to miss the cut.
This is a tough week.
It's not this is the only thing I get right every week.
You okay? Okay, so you go first.
Shit. Okay. All right. So this is going to be. Oh, this is like so impossible. Oh, I know. I'm going to go with Leash.
There you go. Interesting. The guy who never misses a cut. But all right, Kenny. No, I guess none of these guys really missed that many cuts, to be honest with you.
No, none of them missed the cut.
Yeah,
that's what makes it fun.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Hideki.
Wow, this is a tough one. I guess
I like that because you want to know what's great about that pick is he's made 10 of the last 10 cuts. Like that's an actual cool pick. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean,
look, I mean, it is what it is. I mean,
all of these guys, except for, and there's no way I'm going to bet on Sungjae missing back-to-back cuts, even though he's the name I want to say the most.
Ooh, that's a good one too.
But I can't do it. I'm going to say, even though I like this guy, but I think if there's somebody who's going to miss the cut of these guys, the best odds would be for Hatton. So I'm going to say Hatton, even though I like him. It's just, that's my most likely guy to miss it.
The other thing I want to start giving out, by the way, this I'll just start doing it, is I want to give out my worst performing guy who rates to be over 10% owned. And then just based on my projections, and then the best performing guy that rates to be under 5, you know, okay. This is relative to value. So I will say, like, for example, like according to my thing, who I have rated at over 10% ownership that rates the worst is Max Homa. So that would be my full fade, I guess. And then my top guy that I have under 5%, I don't believe he's going to be under 5%, but I have, it's the 7K guy. So it was Aaron Wise. And then if you don't believe he's going to be under 5%, because people always play him, I'll go back. I'll say Charles Howell.
All right. Kenny, okay, I'm looking at some projected ownership, so I'll throw in on this one too. The guy who I don't love that's getting double-digit ownership that I'm not going to have pieces of at the moment, or there's 2 of them. McNeely and Keegan Bradley. I don't plan on having either of them. And we didn't mention Luke List, but I do like Luke List. There's a lot of guys this week. That's all I can say. Kenny, how about you for
above double-digit ownership? I'm gonna say the guy I think that is overrated the most is Corey Connors.
Probably.
There you go. Not bad.
And then under 5% that I think is undervalued would be, that's a hard one.
Well, any of those 6K guys you mentioned are like,
Yeah, maybe, I mean, but it could also be, well, I guess it depends on what we're looking at here in terms of projections, but I'd say it's probably Fleetwood.
Yeah, I like Fleetwood too, but so since you said Fleetwood, I'll say Kevin now, but I think both those guys are really solid.
and just so you guys know what I'm going to do, I'm going to do a little work only because you mentioned that he's going to get some ownership. So if he's going to get ownership, he probably has something in the projections I should look at. I got to look into the Scott Piercy thing. So, and when I finish, I will update projections with Scott Piercy. I'll end up probably having 0 of him, but I figured I'd just do it anyway.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure it out why he was projected. His projections are like better than guys who are like,
yeah, I'll take a look.
8K range. It just doesn't make sense for me. All right, guys. Well, hey, we appreciate everybody tuning in. I know it's kind of a long show again. Like I'll write in the notes that you can always skip to the end and get the final plays, because we're sort of going through the process of trying to figure out what we want the rest of the time. But let's crush it this week. Let's see some screenshots and let's have some sweats. We don't no screenshots though after like 5 minutes. That's my only thing about screenshots. Last night there was some screenshots in the NBA Discord, literally like in halfway through the first quarter of the game, and people are talking about how they're getting screwed by somebody. And I'm like, unless he's hurt, there's no way you can complain about a player 6 minutes into a game.
Dude, I started out, I thought I was going to be in good shape, and then then the Toronto game just evaporated on me.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, good luck to everyone out there. Kenny, thanks for being here. Sheets, thank you, and we'll see you guys at the top of the leaderboard.
All right, see you later.